welcome back to another episode of the Scandinavian Football Show, episode number 5. I didn't do an episode last week, so there's a lot to catch up on this week after fixtures from Easter weekend, and obviously this weekend just gone as well from across Eliteserien, Superliga, Veikkausliiga, and Allsvenskan as well. They have both come back, the Veikkausliiga and the Allsvenskan, so we've got 2 match days from them to cover, and that's probably where we'll start some big results, including, of course, Hammarby against Mjällby. Real shock result there between the top two of last season, and also the matchup in the Svenska Cup final. Hammarby winning 3-0 thanks to a hat-trick from Paulus Abraham. Other results from that weekend: Degerfors losing 3-0 to Sirius, AIK winning 2-1 later on against Halmstad thanks to a goal from Zadok Johanna, the player I'll be talking about in a little bit. A battle between 2 newly promoted teams, Kalmar and Västerås, finished 1-0 to Västerås. Åkerud got a shock point against Malmö after getting newly promoted. That finished 1-1. Elfsborg under Hamburg won 2-0 against IFK Göteborg. Häcken played out a 4-goal thriller with Brommapojkarna. That finished 2-2. And then Gais against Djurgården was the last match of the weekend, and that finished 1-0 to the away team. So starting off with Hammarby against Mjällby, obviously debut for Carl Marius Axum, having been the assistant for Mjällby's league win last season. And then obviously Kalle Karlsson of Hammarby as well. This is his first full season in charge, so a really interesting tactical matchup between the two. But it was all Hammarby throughout the whole game. They were absolutely rampant and dominant, and they wouldn't let Mjällby out of their own half. And Mjällby really struggled to be able to contain Hammarby really. And they got the first 2 goals in the first half, and from that point on, the game was already pretty much dead. They got the 3rd goal early in the second half as well, and it only took the goals for Mjällby to actually try and step out and try to play, and then they kept getting caught by Hammarby as well, thanks to their high press. But yes, really nice finishes from Paulus Abraham. Nothing crazy, but I've always had doubts over Paulus Abraham, whether he can be that sole number 9, he can be that typical striker who can score goals for Hammarby. His goal scoring record has never been fantastic. First goal actually should have been ruled out for handball, but obviously with no VAR being in the Allsvenskan, the goal was allowed to stand, and from then on, there was no looking back. But yeah, here's Paulus Abraham's numbers from the game: 3 goals from an XG of 1.68. They're all kind of 1v1, nice, tidy finishes. 4 shots on target throughout the game, 5 successful dribbles, and 9 touches in the opposition box. He's 23 years old now, Paulus Abraham. He's been around the block. I think he came through Brommapojkarna maybe and played for AIK. He's been, I think, to the Netherlands as well. So he's really got some experience under his belt now, and I think this is the season where he really needs to step up for Hammarby and be that focal point of their forward line to get them over the line in the Allsvenskan and take them towards the league title. Only 8 league goals last season, so he's already got up to 3 after just 1 game in the Allsvenskan. Obviously, I'll talk about the second game that they played, which is a bit of a different story, but great performance for him. Let's go back actually to the rest of the results from match day 1. Åkerud against Malmö. It's a pretty big result for Åkerud. They went 1-0 up as well, thanks to a long throw in. I think that's going to be a real strength of Åkerud. They've got Michael Parker, young English defender from West Brom's academy. He's got a rocket of a throw in as well, so that's going to be a big threat for them going forward. But overall, a good performance to get Malmö at bay. I've still got my doubts over Malmö, whether they've got that energy and they've got that creative talent to be able to break down teams like Åkerud when they go 1-0 up. But they did bring on Oscar Sostrand, who they signed from the Dutch 2nd division. He came on and made a bit of an impact. I think he might have got the assist for the goal as well. So yeah, disappointing result for Malmö, but very good result for Åkerud. In Bjorn Hamburg's first game for Elfsborg, they won 2-0 and looks pretty good. Obviously in the 3-4-3 that him and Graham Potter played throughout their times at Brighton and West Ham and Chelsea, etc. But overall, a good result and a good performance for them. Häcken Brommapojkarna, really good game and late equaliser for Brommapojkarna. They've always got that fighting spirit in them. It was a really good performance from Häcken though. I predicted them to have a really good season, and they looked decent, but defensively obviously a bit exposed. They'll be disappointed. It was a really nice finish as well. Dramatic equaliser for Brommapojkarna in that game. And then Djurgården beating Gais as well. Good performance from them. Nothing too much to note. But I think the results get really interesting going into match day 2. Because if you look down on the second rows, obviously IFK Göteborg lost 2-0 to Häcken, and then Mjällby losing again, but this time to Åkerud. So another fantastic result for Åkerud, and another terrible result for Mjällby. On the back after 3-0 defeat to Hammarby, you'd expect them to bounce back. You'd probably say that's the perfect fixture for them to bounce back, but Ågren were fantastic. They got 2 goals in the first half, another one thanks to a long throw-in, and Mjällby were just snuffed out the rest of the game. They really congested the middle of the park, did Ågren. Obviously, they played out 3 at the back formation, so they're able to get loads of players centrally and to plug the gaps. And the way Mjällby set up, they made a few changes to the starting 11. They dropped Iqbal from the back line. They brought in William Granaf, and they put Elliot Stroud basically on the right side of the front 3, but he did kind of drift inside and play as the creator who would drop deep and get the ball. And that was a real big problem for Mjällby because him and Abdul Imane, who were meant to be 2 of the 3 forward players, were dropping really deep and making it easy for Ågren to defend. And then there was no focal point, someone threatening the back, the last line. So that was pretty disappointing for Mjällby in that game, and they never really looked like they had a couple of chances to score, but they never looked like they were going to go and win that game. So massive credit to Ågren, fantastic start. 4 points from those first 2 games is incredible. It doesn't get any easier for them though. They've got Hammarby away on Saturday, a game that I'll be watching. But yeah, I think if you take a defeat against Hammarby after winning this game against the champions and obviously getting the draw against Mjällby, they would have bitten your hand off for that going into this season as the favourites to be relegated. A game that I watched back was Västerås against Elfsborg. Really entertaining 2-2 match. Pretty even contest. I'd probably say Västerås maybe slightly edged it, but a really entertaining game all in all. They both obviously matched each other in the 3-4-3 that they both normally play anyway. Both tried to play out from the back, both tried to press high, especially Elfsborg. What I know is under Hamburg, he wants his players to take no more than 2 touches. So everything was 1 and 2 touch, really quick, incisive passing through the lines. They were able to break down Elfsborg a couple of times, but defensively they were susceptible. 92nd minute equaliser from Elfsborg, having gone 2-1 down. So they'll probably take it in the end, having won the first game of the season. Västerås are no mugs, as we've seen so far this season. They beat Kalmar on the opening weekend, and I expect them to have a decent season now. My opinion is kind of swayed, because I think I had them staying up, but not being higher than the likes of Kalmar. But I'll definitely say they look the strongest of the newly promoted teams, and that's despite Ågren getting 4 points. Djurgården versus Kalmar, brilliant game again, 3-2 to Kalmar. This game had 4 goals within the first half. Djurgården raced 2-0 up, I think, inside like 7 minutes. Kalmar came back from 2-0 to make it 2-2, and then a late winner for Djurgården to win the game. 2 goals from Leon Hein, Norwegian striker. He also missed a penalty in that game, so he should have had a hat-trick really. But they were completely dominant throughout this game with Djurgården. 71% possession of the ball, 3.9 expected goals, 21 shots, and 200 passes in the final third. As expected, really, the Kalmar, a newly promoted team, they're always going to sit back in games like this against top opposition. And Djurgården were deserving winners of this game in the end. Djurgården did make a slight tactical adjustment from the first game of the season against Gais, switched to a 3-4-3. Which added a bit more of a dynamic threat for them with the wing backs, able to get different approaches into the box from different angles and different terrains, and it was a big threat for them. Obviously, still Matthias Siltanen was a big part of that midfield too, in a creative sense. They've got Malmo coming up this Friday. I'll run through the fixtures towards the end of the episode, but an opportunity for Djurgården to have a strong start and kind of get a bit of a lead on the likes of Hammarby and Mjällby, who've obviously had hit and miss starts, as you'll hear about in just a moment. Halmstad against Degerfors finished 3-0 to the away side, so a reverse of their first game of the season result. Malmo against Gais finished 3-1, so their first win of the season, a pretty important result for them. Gais, another disappointing result. I expected them to have a drop-off, having lost some key players in the summer. But Malmo, after the Ågren draw, they made a couple of changes to the starting 11. They brought in Oscar Sodstrand, I think I'm saying that right, the attacking player from the Dutch second division that I was speaking about. They brought him in to the starting 11, and he was really important, and he scored in this game for Malmo. And they also changed the fullbacks as well, bringing in Striga Larsson and Businello, 2 really experienced players, and 2 players that were key in their title win in 2024. So they looked a lot more assured with those 2 at the back. Pontus Jansson and Colin Rosler as well, back to their best in this game. It wasn't like an unbelievable performance to say, yeah, Malmo are back, but it was definitely needed, and this will give them the confidence to hopefully go on and kick on and improve on last season. Another change that they made to the starting 11 was young 17-year-old Theo Lundberg. He's been playing fullback throughout the Svenska Cup, and I think he started there at left back on the first game of the season. I thought he really looked shaky and exposed, but he did start in his more natural position. I think it's his more natural position anyway, in central midfield alongside Rosengren, and he looked a lot more assured. Defensively, he was really good. Made 5 tackles, 2 clearances throughout the game, won 9 out of 15 ground duels, and even had an expected assist of 0.27, so maybe should have had an assist to his name as well. 51 touches. He was really, really involved for Malmo in that midfield too. And I hope that he'll be able to kick on as well, because I think Malmo definitely need fresh blood in their team. They're a bit of an aging side, all in all. Some players that probably they need to move on from. So whilst at the same time, the experience that they brought in with Stricker Larsen and Busnello was important, I definitely think they need some fresher energy in the attack and midfield. So having Lundberg in there will help. Having Oscar Sostrand in there playing more minutes will definitely help as well. So good result for them. Next, we've got Bromma versus AEK, another 2-2 draw, another Desmond for Bromma. Again, spirited performance from them. AEK will be disappointed not to have won the game, given the fixture list of the first 2 games, Halmstad and Bromma. They would have probably wanted 6 points from those. But what I've got to say about AEK is one of their players, Sadak Yohana, right winger, 18-year-old Nigerian, he is excellent, and I think he's going to have a big season for them. He scored on the first game of the season, probably should have scored 2 at least, because he got into some really dangerous positions, and he did the same thing in this game in terms of getting into those dangerous areas at the back post. Got an assist in this game. But yeah, really, really exciting raw talent. 15 touches in the opposition box for him, 3 shots and 2 chances created. So I'm excited to see how he can kick on for AEK this season. They continue with Taha Ayari as the false 9. He didn't directly make an impact in terms of goal scoring, but they seem pretty creative offensively. So I think AEK should be okay. And then the final fixture, which was played on Monday night, probably not. It's not even the shock of the round, which shows how crazy this fixture list was this weekend. Obviously, Mjällby losing 2-0 to Ågrehet, but Sirius beats Hammarby 2-0. Now, this was obviously a repeat of the Svenska Cup semi-final, which was a thriller, really entertaining game that finished 3-3. Hammarby eventually went through on penalties to the final. But Sirius gave a really good account of themselves throughout that game, and they've done the same thing in this game, this time actually winning the game. So massive credit to them. Sirius looked fantastic early on this season, beating Degerfors 3-0 on the first game of the season. And it's that front 3 that are really making the big impact for them. In particular, the 2 goal scorers in this game, Robbie Jorde, Scottish international, and Isaac Berkebo. They both scored the goals in this game, despite not having a lot of the ball, as they don't need to against teams like Hammarby, who are always going to dominate possession. They look really good on the counter-attack. They've obviously got those fluid rotations between the front 3, and they're able to create dangerous chances whilst also being really, really solid and compact defensively. Hammarby, whilst having all of the ball, 70% possession they had, they only created expected goals of 0.84. So a bit more of a struggle from the first game of the season for Hammarby, which will be disappointing for them, and Kalle Karlsson. But I think you've got to give the credit to Sirius, because they're going to be up there this season. They're top of the league so far after 2 games. Obviously, you can't read too much into that, but 5 goals scored and 0 conceded they couldn't have asked for a better start, really. So massive credit to them. Okay, so on Easter weekend, we obviously had the return of the Veikkausliiga as well from Finland. So 2 match days to cover from that league, including obviously the fixtures that are on screen now. Into Turku, the winners of the Finnish Cup, drawing 0-0 against VPS. HJK winning 3-0 against SJK. FF Jaro 0-1 to FC Lahti. Mariehamn 1-1 against TPS. Eves losing 3-1 against the champions, back-to-back champions Cups. And IF Nistan against AC Oulu finished 5-1 to the away team. Obviously, Inter Turku, disappointing result for them if we start from the top. 0-0 draw against a team that finished just above the relegation playoffs last season, or the relegation zone last season. They dominated the game and they probably should have won it, but I think there's a bit of an off day from the forward line, especially Ali Conte, who was subbed off after about 70th minute. Only 1 shot from VPS the whole game and no shots on target, so complete dominance from Inter Turku, and they'll be disappointed not to have won that game. Big performance from one of VPS's players, though, is Sierra Leone international goalkeeper, only 19 years old, Mamadou Jallo. just having a look at the kind of standout players from that game between Turkey and VPS, and he came up as man of the match, according to FootMob. And his performance looked excellent. I think he made about 5 saves throughout the game. Looked really, really composed, and obviously a clean sheet. From a 19-year-old goalkeeper, you obviously don't see goalkeepers normally trend that young. So yeah, really impressive to see how he performed against the top team. And also you'll see he kept another clean sheet in the next match as well. But before that, HJK with a 3-0 win against SJK. HJK were the top scorers in the Veikkausliiga last season, 74 goals, which is more than anyone else, and they only finished 5th last season, so more than the obviously winners of the league and the rest of the top 4 and anyone else in the league. They conceded a ton as well, but they've already started the season scoring a lot of goals with a 3-0 win. Obviously FF Jaro 0-1 against FC Lati. Cups, as I said, back-to-back league wins for them. They were in the Europa Conference League this season. Gave a decent account of themselves, to be fair. Played against Crystal Palace as well. And yeah, they get their season kicked off in the best possible style with a 3-1 away win. And obviously the last result is probably the biggest of the weekend, the opening round. AC Oulu beating Nistan 5-1. AC Oulu didn't have the best season last season. They finished 4th in the relegation group, which is just outside the relegation playoff position. But they've already started off this season really well with some good performances in the Finnish Cup, including a big win against Cups, the champions, and obviously this big win against IF Nistan. So they look like a team that have got a bunch of goals on them, even though their goal scoring record wasn't fantastic last season. So far this season in the Cup and in the league, they've been scoring a load of goals and they could have a good season. I think they're top of the league after 2 games as well. And then having a look at the Veikkausliiga match day 2. Again, nothing too crazy in terms of results. TPS 2-1 win against FC Lati, which is a battle between 2 newly promoted teams into the Veikkausliiga. TPS actually finished lower than FC Lati last season, finished 2nd and got promoted via the playoffs. But it was a 2-1 home win for them. SJK winning 3-0 against FC Mariehamn. SJK are the youngest team in the Veikkausliiga. Just looking through some of their players, they've, especially the back line, are really, really young, and they do have the youngest average age in the league, 22.8 years old, which is by far and away the youngest team in the league. So really good start for them. There's also, obviously, they lost 3-0 in the first game of the season to HJK, so a really important bounce-back result to go and beat Mariehamn. They also had a poor result in the Finnish Cup just before the start of the league season, losing 6-0 at home to VPS. So they really needed a big result to kickstart their season. And they got that. They got the clean sheet, so very important for them. VPS 0-0 against FF Jaro. So as I said, the goalkeeper Mamadou Jallo, I think his name is, another clean sheet for him. So he's already looking like one of the standout goalkeepers and standout players, definitely standout young players so far this season in the Veikkausliiga. Cups winning 1-0 against IF Nistan, another deserving win. Nothing too crazy happened in this game, but they were by far and away the best team. A player that I wanted to talk about in particular from this game is a Ghanaian fullback called Bob Ni Alma. I'll talk a little bit more about him in just a second, but just to round up the rest of the results from this match week, HJK losing 1-0 at home to AC Oulu, so they go 2 for 2 and they're at the top of the league. And then the last result there, first win for Turkey this season in the league, beating Eves 2-1. In this game as well, there's a player that I wanted to speak about a little bit. Young Finnish centre-back goes by the name of Ilari Kangasniemi. I'm probably saying his name terribly, but I think he made his first league start, or maybe his second league start, and he scored the winner late on. I think it was 95th or 96th minute. So he's come into the team for Inter Turku, having been brought in a couple of years ago from the Inter Milan youth team. He played a couple of games in the UEFA Youth League. It looks a really promising centre-back. He's 6'5", which at 19 years old, he's still got room to grow. He's an absolute monster. He's kind of got like a tall, thin frame, but he looks really, really exciting, really elegant and composed on the ball, able to step into midfield with a lot of quality and break lines. And he was really good in this game, and obviously got that late winner, which is going to give him a massive confidence boost. So I'm really excited to see if he can get more games under his belt and really progress in this Inter Turku side. He's made a few caps for the Finland under 19s team. So hopefully the next step is to get some more games in the Veikkausliiga and then break into the Finland under 21 setup. But yeah, really, really promising for him and an important result for into Turku. But yeah, as I said, I was going to mention that the Cups defender that I noticed in the first 2 games of the season, in their 2 wins. So he goes by the name of Bobny Armour. He's a Ghanaian fullback who can play on either side, right back or left back, but he is predominantly right-footed. 22 years old. He scored in the first game of the season, playing from right back, and scored in the 3-1 win against HJK. And then played left back in the second game of the season, already showing his versatility. But just he has a really good attacking dynamic for Cups with his ability to play give and goes and accelerate. He's really quick off the mark. He's a good dribbler in tight areas as well. So he's going to be a really important attacking player for Cups going into the rest of the season. He played in all 6 of their Conference League matches last season and played decently well as Cups did. So I expect him to kick on this season and be a really important player if Cups are going to go and defend their league title for a 3rd year in a row. So I wanted to give a quick mention to him from what I saw from the first game week of the Veikkausliiga. But that's pretty much it for that. So we'll move on to the Danish Superliga. We've obviously got 2 match weeks again that we've missed from before the last podcast. So match day 25, I'll show you the results on the screen here. So we had FC Midtjylland 2-2 against Sondersjuk. FC Copenhagen getting their first win since, I think, November, but a 7-0 win against Silkeborg. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Velge Boldklub, the team that are bottom of the league, drawing 1-1 with Randers. OB with a 1-0 win against Fredericia. Viborg losing 2-1 at home to AGF, who are top of the league. And Nordsjælland winning 2-1 against Brøndby to continue their good form. So yeah, if you start at the top, Midtjylland versus Sondersjuk. Midtjylland were 2-0 up, going pretty late into the game, 82 minutes on the clock before Sondersjuk pulled one back and eventually got the equaliser. So 2 teams obviously battling out for European qualification, but Midtjylland look pretty secure. I don't think they're going to win the league. AGF already have a bit of a buffer with a 5-point gap, which was obviously extended in this match week. And Sondersjuk, they're in a good position to be able to get Europa Conference League, but based on the next couple of results, which you'll see, I think they're probably not favourites anymore. Copenhagen against Silkeborg is a really, really interesting one. Copenhagen, I think, is weird to say because they haven't won in such a long period of time, but I think a result like this had been coming. If you looked at what I talked about in the last episode before not the Allsvenskan preview, but the one before that, they had a game against Fredericia where they lost 2-1, but they put up an XG of about 5+, which is just something I've very rarely seen. So a result like this had definitely been coming against obviously a team that's struggling in the relegation zone. Makoko, German striker, got a hat-trick in this game and looked back to his best. And yeah, a 7-0 win is a massive confidence boost for them going into the rest of the season, and they really, really needed that win. Velge Boldklub against Randers 1-1. I'm going to talk a bit more about Randers when I talk about match day 26, but not a great result for them against the bottom team. I think anyone who comes up against Velge Boldklub would expect to get 3 points. OB against Fredericia. Again, Fredericia are down there. OB looked pretty comfortable with 2nd place in the relegation playoff group, so decent win for them. Viborg against AGF. AGF moving ever so close to the Superliga title. Another good win against a really good side, Viborg, who've been probably one of the informed teams in the league. Double in that game for German striker Yannick Serra, who is not very prolific at all for AGF. He doesn't always start. He's only got 3 league goals, but he got 2 of them against Viborg, so an important result for them. And then finally, Nordsjælland against Brøndby. Nords continue their good form. Since they switched out 3-4-3, they've looked excellent, dropping Caleb Urinki into the back line and then bringing in the likes of Lamine Sadio, young Senegalese forward, on the right-hand side. They've looked excellent. For Brøndby, it's another loss. It's another game without a win for Steve Cooper. The only positive that I can really find from this game is the fact that they actually scored. So they broke their duck of not scoring in 6 games. So if you're trying to find positives from Brøndby's form, that's maybe one of them. But yeah, going into match day 26, some more interesting results from the Danish Superliga. Starting off with the league leaders, AGF against Nordsjælland. So a battle between 2 obviously informed teams, 2 of the best teams in the league. Nords are actually the joint most informed teams over the last 5 games, I think, with Viborg, or maybe it was with AGF. A late equaliser for AGF in this game. They definitely deserve to win, according to the numbers. An XG of 2.46 compared to 0.31 from Nordsjælland. But for Nordsjælland, I think it was another assist for Lamine Sadio, who continues to impress. Since he broke through into the team, they've had a really interesting dynamic threat, especially with Prince Jr. on the other side. They've looked excellent in their 3-4-3 system. With AGF, I'm going to talk a bit more about their kind of player versatility and their ability for the manager to change systems a little bit in a bit. But in particular, Gift Links is a player that I'm going to discuss, who's a really versatile player. He can play on the left and play on the right. And he's a massive reason as to why AGF are where they are right now, closing in on the Danish Superliga title for the first time in a while, I'm pretty sure. Like a long while. Maybe it's the first time ever. I'll have to double check myself on that one. Silkeborg against OB. So this is a massive, massive result for Silkeborg, having lost 7-0 to Copenhagen the week before. They went 1-0 down. I think they were 1-0 down at half time in this game before coming back to win 3-1. So they showed tremendous resolute and character in this game. It would have been easy for them to fold against one of the better teams in the relegation playoff group. But they secured 3 points in this game, and that really will help in their fight to stay in the top division. I don't think the gap is massive anymore from Fredericia. I think it might be a couple of points. So really important that they win that game. Sondersjuk against Viborg. Sondersjuk, with the last result I discussed as well, they haven't won in 3 games, I think now. So they're slightly falling away in the race for the Europa Conference League playoff position. As for Viborg, another good win, another good performance. They continue to work wonders this season, and I think they've got a real shot at European qualification. So credit to them. Brøndby against Midtjylland. Again, not too much I can say about Brøndby. It's another game that they score, but it's another game that they lose, unfortunately. So that's still no wins for Steve Cooper's side. I'm not sure where they go from here, but it's definitely... I mean, the fact that they're in the Championship playoff group is important, because there's never going to be any threat of relegation, because they were decent in the first half of the season. But yeah, I'm not sure when their bad run of form is going to end, unfortunately, for them. As for Randers against FC Copenhagen, like I said, I was going to mention Randers. I do have a bit of a concern that they might be dragged into a bit of a relegation scrap. They're 4 points clear of Silkeborg, and obviously Silkeborg beat OB in this match week with Randers losing. So the gap is starting to decrease, and it's a bit of a concern for Randers. Obviously, they're one of the biggest clubs in Denmark, so they won't want to be in any sort of relegation talk whatsoever. And I don't think they will. I think they've got enough quality to be able to manage the situation. But another defeat, unfortunately, for them against Copenhagen. So that's back-to-back wins for Copenhagen. So it leaves them in a bit of a... I'm not going to say the word. A bit of a poor situation. And then obviously we've got Fredericia against Velge Ball Club. Another draw for Velge. They're bottom of the league. I don't think they're going to stay up, unfortunately. Fredericia, probably a missed opportunity. They're just outside the relegation positions, so they would have wanted to increase that gap. But yeah, 2-2 draw is probably a fair result of that game. And then just as I was talking about in terms of Copenhagen, it's first back-to-back league wins since August 1st. So a massive, massive amount of time. They might have had back-to-back wins in like the Cup and the Champions League, but league wins not since end of July / start of August. And they've finally done that now. So hopefully they can kick on for the rest of the season, top the relegation playoff group, and get their playoff position for the Europa Conference League, which would be the minimum that they should be aiming for with a club of their size and quality. As I said, I was going to mention Gift Links a bit more. He's one of AGF's most important players, one of their most versatile players. They play the 3-4-3, as I've discussed many times, and he can play either on the right side or the left side of that. And the manager often does rotate where he does play, sometimes within games or sometimes at the start. Really unpredictable player, quality dribbler, very direct. The way AGF work is to overload the midfield to then create 1v1 situations in wide areas. So they'll leave the likes of Gift Links in a wide position, hugging the touchline. So when he receives the ball, he's got space to drive in, go 1v1 against his opponent. And because of his unpredictable nature, it's so hard for the defender to know where he's going to go. So he can work across on the outside, and AGF can flood the box with the opposite wing back and the midfielders that can make late runs into the box. Or he can come inside, as we saw in the game against Viborg recently, cut in onto his right foot and whip it into the top corner. He's got so much ability technically, and it showed in this recent game as well, against Nords. 5 chances created, 2 shots on target, 91 touches in throughout the game, 9 crosses, 4 out of 5 successful dribbles. So he is, and you can see his heat map at the top right as well. He's always getting into really dangerous attacking positions, a constant menace for the opposition. And with his ability to go on either side, whether he's playing on the left or playing on the right, or going onto his left foot or his right foot, it makes it so difficult for defenders to come up against. And yeah, it is one of my favourite players in the league. And I think if AGF obviously win the league as I expect them to, I think he's going to be a strong contender for Player of the Year, is the South African. And then a little bit more on AGF and Giftlings in particular, you can kind of see these 2 maps from their last 2 home games against Nordsjælland and against Brøndby. And as you can see from the little chart underneath, the highest concentration of players where it's the lighter areas. So they do typically focus their attacks down the right-hand side. That's not always because Giftlings is playing, but it's a big part of it. So you can see in the Brøndby game on the left, a lot of the lighter green area is down on the right-hand side where Giftlings would be positioned, and even more so on the right example against Nordsjælland. Really, really high up. They try to isolate Giftlings in 1v1 positions as much as possible, and that's how they get success. And that's how they are in a position where they're closing in on the league title. So I thought that was quite interesting to bring up. The way they try to, we all know that they try to exploit wide areas, but in particular that right-hand side where they've got Giftlings at times, or they can rotate with others. It's always players that have got really good 1v1 ability and can create chances as Giftlings can do. So yeah, that'll be the roundup for the Danish Superliga before we move on to Eliteserien, match day 3 and 4 to discuss. A lot of big results again, as always, from Norway. So match day 3, we had this Easter weekend results. These were, I think they were all on Easter Monday, or most of them anyway. Vålerenga losing 1-0 to Viking, the champions of last season. HamKam 1, Brann 5, so really important result for Brann. They were back to their best in this game. Kristiansund losing 3-0 to Bodø Glimt. Molde losing 1-0 to Lillestrøm. Sarpsborg 1, Start 1. Tromsø 2, Rosenborg 0. Another big result for Tromsø, and a real contrast between these 2 teams, Tromsø and Rosenborg. Rosenborg, who've started the season horribly, they're down towards the bottom of the league. They can hardly buy a goal, let alone stop one. Tromsø, on the other hand, 1 goal conceded throughout the season. They look on fire. They score goals. They finished 3rd last season, and they could even aim for even higher this season with the fall off of Bodø Glimt so far this season, and Brann and the likes. Tromsø could be in for a big season. So a good result for them in that game. Arlesund against Fredrikstad finished 3-2. I think that was on the Tuesday night. And then KFUM Oslo losing 2-1 at home to Sandefjord. But I'm going to go straight on to match day 4, because I think then we can kind of discuss it as a whole, how teams are going. So the results from this weekend just gone included Lillestrøm against Start, which finished 3-1. I actually watched this game. I watched it back after. I thought Lillestrøm were good. I don't think they had to be at their best. They did try to exploit Start in behind, but Start were kind of forced to move into a deep block 5-3-2 shape as they were getting exploited in behind by Lillestrøm's quality. At times they did come out to try and press, but I just don't think they've got that actual individual quality in there to do that. And it's really difficult once they were in that low block to be able to counter-attack fluidly with the front 2. 5-3-2 is so difficult to be able to... You've got the 2 focal points, outlets looking for the counter-attack, but they don't have the speed, and they're obviously always going to be outnumbered as well. So a really competent performance from Ødegaard's team, and he's still unbeaten in the league. Obviously last season they were in the 2nd division, but he's still unbeaten in the league since he took over as manager, which is incredible. In that game as well, I wanted to mention the 2nd goal from Carlsberg. Really, really nice volley, ball over the top, and the ball's coming over his shoulder, and he's able to get his body around it from fairly close range, but it's a really nice goal. So if you ever get the chance to watch that, then definitely do so. Tromsø winning 2-0 again, this time against Kristiansund, so another fantastic result for them. And then this is the big one. Viking 5, Bodø Glimt 0. This game I watched as it was happening, and I could not believe what was going on. I'll discuss a bit more soon, But yeah, that's definitely the shock result of the weekend in Elite Serien. Rosenborg winning 2-1 at home to Sarpsborg. So a first win for Rosenborg this season. It wasn't vintage, far from, but very important for them to get off the mark this season after a really poor start. Arlesund 2-2 against KFU Wem. Arlesund probably disappointed because they had a decent set of early fixtures against some newly promoted teams. KFU and Oslo were down there last season. They would have fancied themselves at home. But unfortunately, from the first 4 games, it is 0 wins for them, and they're second bottom of the table. So they'll be disappointed with that. Fredrikstad against Vålerenga. Both made decent starts, and this was probably if this was an even game, 1-1 is probably a fair result. I don't really have too much to say about that particular game. Molde against HamKam, important win for Molde. Difficult to assess how important this will be and how well they actually played, because HamKam are quite leaky defensively and they've been poor in the last few games. But definitely an important win for them, and a brace for Emil Breivik, who's kind of like a second striker almost. But he did kind of play higher up in this game, and he got to 2 goals to help them on their way to 3 points. And then the last result from this weekend was Brann against Sandefjord, and it's another loss for Brann. So that's 3 losses from the first 4 games, only 1 win. And I can't really say it was a terrible performance again, because it's a game that they should have won. According to the underlying numbers, you would have expected them to win, but they went down 1-0 in the first half, and they were unable to pull it back. So 2.36 XG Brann created compared to 0.95 of Sandefjord. So if you go off that alone, then obviously Brann should have at least drew this game, but probably won. And with Viking away coming this weekend, Saturday evening, I think it is, it doesn't get any easier for Brann, and they're going to have to get their act together really quickly if they're going to avoid this being a disastrous season, as we've seen the likes of Rosenborg and Molde have in recent years. So a big one coming this weekend. And I'll round up the fixtures that are coming this weekend very soon as well. But we did have 2 more games to be played in Elite Serien in the week, and that was due to obviously postponements, mainly due to like Bodø Glimt's involvement in the Champions League and stuff. So they did miss the first 2 games. So they played again after the 5-0 loss to Viking, drawing against Sarpsborg 1-1. A disappointing result again for Glimt. They were obviously, you could say they were slightly better than the game against Viking, but it's not difficult to do really considering how poor they were. And then the other result, I think on Wednesday, was Tromsø against Lillestrøm. The 2 teams were the only teams going into this game with a 100% record, and it finished 0-0. So Tromsø, again, another clean sheet for them. That's 4 out of 5 games where they've kept a clean sheet. Only 1 goal conceded this season. As for Lillestrøm, they stay unbeaten under Ødegaard, 3 wins from 4. They look strong. There wasn't too much happening in this game, but I think they'll both probably take the point. Tromsø brought back in Abubakar Sedikinta, who's one of my players to watch this season. Gambian centre-back, really, really good. But they haven't needed him so far this season, but even when bringing him into the back line, it didn't disrupt anything. They looked as solid and composed as always. And again, just fantastic start for Tromsø. In particular, Jens Hjertedal, he's been like the standout player in midfield, young Norwegian player. He's already got 4 goals in 4 games. Obviously didn't score in this game, but he's definitely going to have a big part to play in. I imagine some interest will grow for him if he continues his form for Tromsø. So yeah, obviously I've got to talk a bit more in detail about this game, the biggest game of the weekend, between Viking and Bodø Glimt. So watching this game live is just, I couldn't really believe it. They went 3-0 down, or Viking went 3-0 up within the first 16 minutes, and it was an absolute collapse from Bodø Glimt. They couldn't get the ball out. Viking, when they were attacking, they wouldn't let attacks die, so they would attack, Bodø Glimt would stop the attack, but then Viking would be on them like a rash, winning the ball back up higher, and creating chances and scoring goals from that. Scored a goal from a set piece. In the second half, they scored a really good goal from a counter-attack. As Bodø Glimt pushed everyone forward, they pushed the fullbacks high up, and they were exposed completely in this game. And it's a really disappointing performance from Bodø Glimt. Offensively as well, they looked lethargic and they looked slow. But you got to kind of focus on Viking, because they were obviously, it was more of a good performance and a really good game plan from them, I'd say, than a poor performance from Bodø Glimt. 5 goals scored in this game, 2.42 XG, 15 shots with 9 shots on target and 4 big chances created. As I said, they won the ball back up high as often as possible, and that was a real good source of creating chances for them. Trippic on the left-hand side, he was obviously one of their standout players in the title win last season. He was back to his best. He had a poor start against Hampcam at the start of the season, but he definitely looks like he's back at his level. A good performance again from Christiansen as well. A goal and 2 assists from the striker position, and 2 more goals as well from young Norwegian midfielder Gavia Egerskog. So yeah, brilliant performance all around from Vikings attacking players and their defensive players as well, because they snuffed out anything that Bodø Glimt tried to create. They hardly had a sniff on goal. And that was largely down to their tempo in midfield. This is a pass map that I found from SofaScore from Patrick Berg. Patrick Berg has been excellent for Bodø Glimt, as we all know, arguably one of the best players in the Champions League this season. If you look at the numbers, they'll definitely back that up. He was, in terms of passing and defensive work and distance covered and everything, he was up there. In this game in particular, I was disappointed with his passing. As you can see, the green arrows are his successful passes and the red arrows are his unsuccessful passes. The unsuccessful passes are obviously the ones that all kind of went forward and tried to break lines. Now, that is obviously the natural trend. When you try to play a more risky pass, it's more likely to get cut out. But I thought that happened way too frequently for a player of Patrick Berg's quality, and that obviously allowed Viking to regain possession and counter-attack as frequently as they did. And also, just in general, too many sideways and backwards passes. And I'm not saying that's all Patrick Berg's fault. He didn't have too much forward movement around him, and a lot of the attacking areas were congested by Viking, who set up in a nice shape and were really organised. But yeah, Patrick Berg just wasn't at his level in this game, and it kind of was a reflection of the whole Bodø Glimt team, who were probably a bit tired after their incredible Champions League run. They had basically non-stop football since the end of last season in November. They haven't really had a full break. Yes, they missed the first 2 games of the season, but they still had to play in the Norwegian Cup. So they haven't had a full rest, and they do pretty much play the same team all of the time. Jens Petter Hage played a bit more centrally in the last couple of games, but he wasn't really able to make an impact and create. So Bodø Glimt, I'm not too concerned about them in the long run. I think just in the short run, they need to kind of get through this period where they've obviously lost 5-0. They just drew against Salzburg. They are going to dominate in most matches as well. So they should be. There'll be opportunities to get back to their best 100%. But the last thing they want is for teams like Viking to start racking up a lead and a bit of a gap between them, having played the extra games as well. And they're constantly playing catch-up. That's going to make it difficult for Bodø Glimt. But as I said, not too much cause for concern yet, I don't think. But if they don't win in the next game, then maybe it's a different story. And obviously, I'll round that up when we come back next week. Obviously, more fixtures happening across this weekend, including some happening today when this video is published from the Danish Super League and Allsvenskan. From Denmark, we've got Brøndby against Sundersjuk. That'll be an interesting game. Sundersjuk probably need that win a bit more. Even though Brøndby have obviously gone in that winless run, Sundersjuk, to keep their Conference League playoffs hopes alive, they'll probably need to win this game. And then in the Allsvenskan as well, we've got 2 games instead of the usual Monday slots. Veikkausliiga against Elfsborg, good opportunity for Hamburg to get another win under his belt. And then big one between Djurgården and Malmö. This will be interesting. Djurgården won 2 out of 2. Malmö got their first win last weekend against Gais, as I mentioned. This one's always an interesting game for me to see how 2 teams who probably performed a bit under expectation last season, how they'll bounce back at the start of this season. Those games tonight, so I'll keep an eye on how they go and obviously bring you updates for next week's pod. So that will be everything for today, and I'll see you all next week.